original art material. Sorry, we are recording this this workshop. It got started a bit late, which is sorry about that. But your name and your information won't appear online. But as you know, the Wiener Holocaust Library is one of the oldest institutions in the world collecting about the Holocaust. And it is Britain's largest collection of original archival material and printed material on pre-war Jewish life, the Nazi era, and the Holocaust. Our collections really range a wide range of subjects, including the history of anti-Semitism, Nazi persecution and its legacies, post-war trials, and the far right in Britain. It's also the UK's only point of access to the International Tracing Service archive, which is a remarkable resource of over 30 million pages of Holocaust-era documentation relating to the experiences of over 17.5 million people. So you'll be hearing about all of this from us today. But first, we want to do just a quick check-in to see who has joined us today and to learn a bit more about your interests. We're going to be using something called Mentimeter. If you've never used this, it's quite easy to use. You will scan this QR code if you're joining us on your phone. If you are on your computer, you can type in menti.com, menti.com, and then you can type in this code at the top of your screen, 26738081. This service really asks a lot of questions, and I've got 4 questions for you, and I think my colleagues have a few more later in the presentation. And all of your responses are recorded anonymously, but they will be shown on the screen. And everybody will have a few seconds to respond to each slide, and then we'll proceed to the next question. So now that everybody seems to be logging in, I'll just give it 1 second more so you can get to the site. I see the numbers are going up. Okay. The number to log in, to log into the Menti page will stay up on the top of the screen too. So if you missed this slide, you can join at any point. So I'm going to the next slide. So wanted to ask where everyone is logging in from. There might be a kind of preponderance of pins in one section of the world, I assume. But it'd be very interesting to see if we have anyone outside the UK joining us today. Oh, yes, it's coming. Welcome, welcome. Giving everyone a chance to respond. Oh, fantastic. It's great to see that we've got some people from the US. We've got people in India. It's kind of hard to see where in Central Europe you might be coming from but on this map, but it will be a little bit clearer in our results. But it's really great to see that we have a wide range of responses here. Just giving it a few more seconds. Okay. Great. I'm going to go on to the next slide. What's one word that comes to mind when you think of digital archives? Be great to hear your thoughts on this. Accessibility, video, immortality. Interesting. Photographs, easy, overwhelming. This is something we felt as we were putting together our presentation, because one thing that we've decided is that there's lots of unpredictability when it comes to digital stuff. Great, panic. Some positives, some negatives, democratizing. It's great. We've got lots of votes for accessibility and accessible, which is interesting. And some for incoherent, overwhelming. Difficult to navigate. Metadata. Transformative, that's a nice one as well. Great. Great. It's interesting to see these because a lot of these sort of obviously more positive reactions to what digital archives can be in terms of accessibility and metadata we'll be discussing today. And then, of course, trying to overcome some of the feeling of overwhelm and difficult searching and things like that, panic that can be induced when you're trying to access material online. So it's good to see these reactions, and it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts at the end. So I'm going to proceed to the next slide. How experienced are you with the Wiener Holocaust Library's digital resources? And we've given you 3 different choices. Not familiar at all with them, used them before, but would like to learn more, and if you're an expert but looking for a review. It'll be interesting to see this as well. We've got a few experts among us, so welcome to you. Great. Great. It looks like most people aren't that familiar with our resources, and some of you have used them before, but we hope that there's something for everybody in this workshop today. But it's really good to see how you feel about your own skills, and we're going to check in about this at the end to see if you feel like you've been able to improve them after the course of this workshop today. So my next and final slide for this section is to describe your research interests in 5 keywords or fewer. Now, this is always really difficult, especially for academics, to describe research interests in keywords, but I think it's a good exercise. So I'd be interested to hear how you characterize your own research. Public community engagement, ghettos, archival curation and donation, exile, genocide, bystanders. I have to scroll down. What's interesting is that we have obviously subject-related research, but as well as practice in terms of archival usage and curation, as well as our subject areas. I'm trying to scroll this down a little bit. Restitution, social history, Africa refugee stories. Fantastic. It's quite a wide range of research interests, and we hope there's something for everyone in today's presentations, and we'll try to call out things that are specifically relevant to your research interests. So thanks for that. And I'm going to stop this one for now and go back to this PowerPoint. Just to tell you a little bit more about what we hope to do today, I'm going to be giving a kind of introduction to who we are and our collections, and I'll talk specifically about a couple of our digital resources that focus on eyewitness accounts. And then I will hand over to my colleague, Chris, who's going to be talking about our Wiener Digital Collections and our catalog. And then after Chris's presentation, we'll have time for a short break, and then we'll come back and hear from Elise. And then we'll have time for all kinds of questions. And we're trying to make this as interactive as possible. It's always a little bit tricky online. But if you have any questions in the meantime, there is a Q&A feature, so please feel free to post those at any time in the chat. So just to get started, I want to just begin a little bit with the history of the library, the history of the Wiener Library, which is, of course, now called the Wiener Holocaust Library. As I mentioned, it's the oldest archive that's been collecting about the Holocaust since the time of the Nazi period. And I think it's really interesting to think about our history because it sort of tells you why we have, in some cases, what we have in our collections. And the history of institutions is interesting from that regard because it tells you a bit about why we have particular gaps in our collections and why we have what we have. We marked our 90th year of operation in 2024. We were founded by the German Jewish scholar, Dr. Alfred Wiener, who you can see here on your screen, who began to collect materials in the 1920s and the 1930s to help undermine the rise of the Nazis and those who sympathized with them or allied with them. And as you can see, as I said, you can see him here on the left. He was a veteran of World War I. And once he returned from his service, he was deeply alarmed by the rise in anti-Semitism that he saw in Germany. And he and his colleagues began to gather information and act as an information service, essentially disseminating information that was aimed to subvert the Nazis. But in time, as you might imagine, and as the Nazis gained more power and more influence, due to the danger of their activities, he and his family fled from Germany to the Netherlands, in 1933 when Hitler came to power. Now, just before the start of the Second World War, Wiener managed to flee to England, where he was able to continue this work of collecting in order to undermine. But his wife, Margareta, who you see here, and his three daughters, Ruth, Miriam, and Ava, were not able to get visas in time, and they stayed behind in the Netherlands. They were all eventually deported to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp via Westerbork camp. And although they all survived, Margareta died shortly after her release from Bergen-Belsen on a rare prisoner exchange. So for Alfred Wiener, I think we might say that collecting and disseminating information began as an act of political resistance in some respects, but it became very deeply rooted in his personal losses and the irreparable rupture of his family. He was reunited with his daughters in New York after the war, where he frequently traveled to facilitate his information gathering and dissemination. And then during the war, he began to serve British intelligence efforts, his collections, and after the war, began to serve the investigations of war crimes trials, such as at Nuremberg, later on the Eichmann trial, and even later on, after Wiener, the David Irving trial. So the work continued despite this familial interruption. So a little bit more about what we have. The collection, as you might imagine, came to be known as Wiener's Library and then eventually Wiener Library, and it was reshaped most recently to the Wiener Holocaust Library. We've been located in London ever since Wiener moved it here. Originally, we were located at a different location, but since 2011, we've been at Russell Square, which is in the heart of academic Bloomsbury. If you've ever been to London, we are an independent charity. And we are still a collecting archive. We have a public reading room, which is open to all. And you can see here some of the statistics about the collections we hold, which are available for access in the reading room and increasingly online, which is why we're here today to talk about how you can access our materials if you can't make it to London, or if you do and you also want to use our materials. But of course, if you're ever in London, please do pay us a visit. We'd be very happy to show you our collections in person. Now, although our name suggests that we're a library, we know that libraries do much more than collect books anyway. We curate temporary exhibitions, digital resources, and support family research and host lots of events. Many of these can be attended virtually, and you can follow new developments online and on various channels here, which I've explained on this slide. Everything is basically free of charge, except for document delivery and some copyright charges for materials, which you can request from our reading room. But all our events and exhibitions are free, and you can catch up on these via YouTube. So back to our collections. Our collections are quite wide-ranging. Our printed collections include rare first edition books, like these written by Thomas Mann and banned by the Nazi Party. We hold a collection of over 400 original Nazi works, which were used to indoctrinate children in the Third Reich. One example is the Der Giftpilz, which was written by Ernst Hiemer. and published by Julius Streicher, who was the founder and publisher of the virulently anti-Semitic newspaper Der Stürmer. This, of course, means the poisonous mushroom. This is many of you might be familiar with this. And this book alludes to how, just as it is difficult to determine a poisonous mushroom from an edible mushroom, it's difficult, according to the rhetoric in this book, to determine a Jew from a non-Jew. So this is just a few examples of some of the printed materials that we have. We also have materials that were gathered within concentration camps and ghettos, such as the Philip Mannes collection, which highlights cultural life in the Theresienstadt ghetto. Mannes was a former fur trader and inmate of Theresienstadt, and his collection reveals something about life in the camp, but also includes references to some of the over 500 lectures from eminent Jewish scholars, actors, poets, and scientists who were also incarcerated in Theresienstadt, and many who contributed entries to these notebooks and poems. And the notebook of Philip Mannes is currently on display in our current exhibition, which focuses on the experiences of elderly Jewish victims of the Holocaust, because he was quite important in that history within Theresienstadt. We also have thousands of Red Cross telegrams sent between those separated by war and persecution. These Red Cross telegrams are from Franz and Hertha Kuhn in Berlin to their daughter Hannele, who had managed to find refuge in Great Britain on one of the Kinder transports. And these, I think, give a moving account of the trials of a very close-knit, loving family, which was split by Nazi persecution. And what we have here is a picture of her parents' last letter, which was dated 1942. And Hannele thought it was to be a farewell letter, which contains some advice on how to continue on with her life. This is on the other side of this telegram. Now, our website, wienerholocaustlibrary.org, is really, I think, the first stop in exploring the breadth of these collections and the diversity of our events and exhibitions. And I just want to go now into a little bit of a deeper dive on how to explore some of these. If you were to go to the What We Have section of our website, you'll find a link that says digital resources. And this is what we're kind of concentrating on today. You can access a number of digital resources from this link after you click on What We Have. Chris is going to talk a little bit more about our catalog and the Wiener Digital Collections next, but I'm just going to focus now on two of our collections of eyewitness accounts or testimonies that were gathered by the library's predecessor organization, the Jewish Central Information Office, which is what our name was when Wiener was still working in Amsterdam, and also the Testifying to the Truth page, which holds our eyewitness accounts, which were gathered by the library beginning in the 1950s. So if you were to proceed to this link, I'm not sure if this is actually showing. Oh yeah, here it is. So the link is here, Pogrom November 1938.co. Okay, these sites are a little bit older, and a lot of this material is also accessible on Wiener Digital Collections. So one of the aims of this workshop is to try to show you how we have all of these different microsites, but Wiener Digital Collections really essentially brings them all together. But if you're interested in the kind of history of particular collections, such as these eyewitness accounts, you can explore them on these websites. So this website includes a set of often anonymized accounts, which were recorded in the days and weeks after Kristallnacht, or also known as the November Pogrom in 1938 in Germany and Austria. And this was the period when Jewish homes, synagogues, and places of business were destroyed. And this was organized as an alleged act of reprisal after the death of a German statesman in France. In response, this was part of the type of work that Wiener was doing. He and his colleagues organized the recording of these accounts to bring greater attention to what was happening inside Germany and Austria and disseminating them through various news wires. So many of these accounts are anonymous, as the eyewitnesses felt that they were still in danger. And this gives them, I think, a kind of immediacy that can't be really replaced. And you can access them through this link or this QR code. And like I said, you can also access these through our Wiener Digital Collections, which Chris will discuss next. So just pointing to one example, you can see here we have the original scan of the account, which is typewritten, which is helpful when you're trying to translate it. But happily, the transcriptions in English have already been provided here. If you were to click around, you can find, if you click on English, you can find the account has already been translated. And these are really useful, I think, for understanding the immediate impact of these events on Jewish victims, but also from eyewitnesses who saw what was happening amidst the violence of Kristallnacht. I'm going to now proceed to the other microsite that we have, testifying to the truth, and this pertains to the eyewitness accounts that were gathered in the beginning in the 1950s by the library. This page is the basis of my book project, so I'm really happy to answer any more questions about these. We obviously have a lot of ground to cover, so I'm not going to spend too much time, but these were over 1,300 accounts that were recorded and led by our director of research, our first director of research, Eva Reichman, as I said, beginning in the 1950s. And this was really meant to provide additional information from the perspective of eyewitnesses to supplement what the library had collected by this time. And I think these accounts are really interesting for many reasons. They weren't only typewritten accounts, but they're also poems and plays and all sorts of other things that were taken as testimony. They were providing perspectives from Jewish and non-Jewish eyewitnesses to what was happening in different parts of Europe. They were recorded first in London and in Britain, and sort of spiraling out across Europe by word of mouth. The library worked with other organizations to record some of these accounts as well. These were based on interviews between an interviewer and interviewee, and then resulted in a written account that in many cases the interviewee signed off on. Not in all cases, but in many cases. And they revealed this, in some respects, a kind of underrepresented role of women in gathering evidence of atrocity. Many of the interviewers were women and refugees and survivors themselves. So it's very interesting, not only for what's in the accounts, but also the kinds of conversations that the interviewers and interviewees were having. So you can use this link here. It's testifyingtothetruth.co.uk, or you can use this QR code and it will take you right to the link. Just to give an example of this collection, I think what's interesting about this collection is that there's no sort of set list of questions that every interviewer had to ask. So it's quite a diverse collection in terms of the kinds of information that was gathered from interviewees. So one way to kind of think about how this collection came together is to isolate these particular sub-collections within this larger collection of eyewitness accounts. And one good example of this that we have is the work of Nellie Wolfheim, who was a feminist Freudian-based scholar of early childhood pedagogy, whose work was deemed too controversial by the Nazis, and her work was banned. She came to England at the age of 60, and her story also features in our current exhibition on older Jewish victims of the Holocaust. She eventually began to work for the library as an interviewer, and her interviews really focus on aspects that were particularly interesting to her in her experience, like gender, age, psychological impact, and financial independence. She interviewed several residents of the Otto Schiff home, which was a home for older Jewish refugees and survivors here in London. But sometimes she also interviewed her former students, like Johanna Metzger and her husband Paul Lichtenstern. So here you see the only kind of coherently similar part of this collection, which is the cover sheet, which includes some very important let's say metadata, before it was called metadata, of the title of the interview, who conducted the interview, when it was taken in by the library, the language it was originally taken in. And what's useful about this website is that you can actually access many of these accounts, all translated into English. So if they weren't taken, some of them were taken in English, but for the most part, they were taken in German, but other languages as well. So as I mentioned, she also interviewed some of her former students, and here you see her, Nellie Wolfheim, on a beach in the 60s in England with Hanni Lichtenstern, who was one of her former students in Germany. Now, this site also has a couple other sort of structures that help you navigate it. We include the original classification that was created by the team that recorded the interviews. Once they were recorded, if you saw back on this cover sheet, there are these underlined terms, which means that they were kind of creating an index and a kind of taxonomy of persecution of Jews and others. And this classification helped them organize the kinds of topics that were being covered by the interview. So you can see how this is just a part of it because it's cut off a little bit. But if you go to the website, you can see that you see this original classification that was derived from these summary sheets. And then the website also then kind of curates some of the let's say more popular kind of searches that people might do, and highlights particular testimonies that might relate to, for example, rescue efforts or children and youth, or the November pogrom, or Theresienstadt, for example. And so you can search this way, and once you click on any of these, it will bring up the testimonies that are most relevant to these themes. You can also just search generally using the search term, and it will go through the metadata and find materials that might be related to your topic. So I think without further ado, my time is well over, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Chris, who's going to talk about our catalog and other ways that you can search our digital collections online.
Right, thanks very much. Yeah, I'll continue talking about some other things, and you'll see some connections between our two talks. So I'm looking at two websites today. One is the catalog, the online catalog, and the other is our digital repository. I want to underline the difference between these two sites. One, the catalog, only contains metadata about the materials that we have in our reading room. So it has information about the books, document collections, photograph collections, pamphlets, and periodicals, so that you can find them when you come into the reading room. That's quite different to the digital repository, which does contain metadata, so you can find items in the repository, but has the images of the items themselves as well. So a catalog doesn't normally contain images of items themselves. In some cases they do, but there's on the whole they don't, because there's a very different underlying software used for both the two different types of sites, and catalogs aren't really often suited to holding those digital images. Our online catalog is called Sutron. So if I refer to Sutron, that's what I mean, the online catalog. And this contains everything that you can view in our reading room if you come into London. So the normal mode of access is just going to be a simple search, which gives you results. You've got tabs where you can limit or narrow down your search to different types of material. And if you click on the material on the link, then you see the metadata that we've created about that item. Christina's talking a lot about key search terms. We have these here too, which you can click on to get more material on that particular term. I want to underline that this is quite subjective. So any search terms or rather keywords are only there because a cataloger has thought to add them. So you probably won't get, if you click on Ukraine, you won't actually find everything we have about Ukraine. You need to do searches for Ukraine using the simple search I just did before. Also, you need to think about spellings. So very typical case with Lviv, there's the Ukrainian spelling as a search term. You get 121 results. But if you were to enter Lvov for the Polish spelling, you would have 146 results. So you have to play around with how you search for things in our catalog, especially when you're dealing with with languages that have been transliterated from non-Latin scripts. That can be quite inconsistent. Certainly, it is with Cyrillic terms. You have to try different forms of transcription when you type them into our catalog to find material. Now, if I bring up a document collection, if you know the collection reference number for document collection, you can get all the different parts of that collection just by putting the collection reference number into that field, collection reference. Here's an example, the Gordon family papers. If you look on the right-hand side, you'll see the structure of the entire collection itself. This is useful because archival collections are divided into a hierarchical tree, whereby all the higher parts should give you more information about the lower parts. So right at the top, we have a collection level description, which gives you an overview of the entire collection. So if ever you type something into our catalog and get a result for a file, it's always worth looking at the archival tree and going up several levels because these can give you more information about the lower levels. If I just highlight the archival tree here we have the collection level description, which we were just looking at. Below that, we have a series, a sub-series, and a file. And if you ever go find a file, look at the sub-series or series above it to get more information about the contents of that file. We generally speaking catalog at file level, which means we don't create an entry in the catalog for every single letter or document, but rather for a whole file of documents, which can be several folders, which means that any subject keywords that we have attached to that file, they might refer to just one document for that file, or they might refer to the entire contents of the file. Now, in our catalog, we have, often we will have a red piece of text here that tells you that the item has been digitized. And if you go down to the related web pages field over here and click on that, it will take you to the digital repository. So it's now taking you to a new site. And this, for the document collections, this will normally take you to a new collection level description in our online digital repository, Wiener Digital Collections. It has an overview of the whole collection here, which is taken from the catalog. You have lots of subject keywords, geographical keywords, again, all taken from the catalog, which you can use to narrow down your search within that one collection. So I know you click on the Isle of Man, and that would narrow down the number of files that are showing. These are the different files that have been tagged with Isle of Man, and that would take us to the item. If you want to get back to that collection level description, look at this section here at the top. You follow the trail of cookies going back to the previous level, and if you click here, that will take you back to the collection level description. There are a few things you can't do on this page, and one of them is search within the collection. You have to do that another way, and I'll show you how to do that. You also can't reorder the results of these different files. These are all different files from that collection. Each tile represents, if you look at the catalog, one of these records here. That's one method of access to the collections. The most common is like with the online catalog, is to do a simple search. Give an example. And that will bring up the 92 different items in our online repository that are concerned with, or have the term with pogroms. Again, I can narrow that down by looking at these widgets, this so by collection, and now I'm only looking at the books and pamphlet collections. One thing to keep an eye on is where you are within the website. And this, again, it tells you up here, you are here. Because if I were to search again for another term, Poland, I now only have 20 results. That's because, not because we only have 20 things about Poland in the Wiener Digital Collections, but because we've only got that's within the book and pamphlet collection. If I get rid of that that tab, then yes, I go back to the full the full online repository, and can see that we've got 549 things about Poland in here. Like a lot of other search systems, if you put a term within inverted commas, it will search for that exact term within the catalog, the online repository. Also, you can use stars as wildcards. So, that will now search for everything that begins anti-Sem. So anti-Semitic, anti-Semitism, antisemitismus, all of those terms will now be searched. So that's like most other search systems. What it doesn't have in this simple search is you can't use Boolean search terms and or not. You'd have to go to the advanced search for that. When you get a set of results, you can organize them in a different way by going to the sort by drop down field. Some of these are useful for all the different types of materials. For example, relevance, which looks at the number of times a term appears in the metadata. The import date you can use to find what the most recent or the oldest things in the lineage collections are. Some of them aren't relevant to all materials. So document collections generally don't have an author, artist, or editor, or a publication year. Those are only really useful on the whole for books and pamphlets. Catalog number also doesn't really help you organize the book and pamphlet collections. It's more useful for document collections. Another thing to look at is the page types. If you go to the collection overview, that will give you all of the collection overviews that contain those terms. And from there, you can start browsing again through the different files in the collection. There are other ways of finding materials, for example, by browsing. This is found in the browsing widget, and you can go through the alphabet and click on the term you're interested in. As you can see, there are only 23 items tagged with the word pogrom, which shows again that subject keywords will only reveal a subset of the materials connected to your topic. So you need to use a combination of looking at keywords and you do your own searches in the search field to find materials. A third way of accessing the materials is to browse through the different collections. We have 3 macro collections, so the archival collections, book and pamphlet collections, and periodical collections. And if you click on those, you can then see everything that belongs to those collections. Christine was mentioning our 2 older websites. These can also be found here if you click on those, or if you go to collection highlights, and that will show you items just from those collections. But otherwise, any search you do within Wiener Digital Collections, if there's material from the November pogrom or the Testifying to the Truth sites, that will be brought up as well. It's just the you're not actually on those sites, but you will see the material, if not all of the extra things that Christine was talking about. And then the most complicated way of searching. So yeah, I'll just give you an example of the archival collections. And there you see each of these leads to a collection level description about that collection. They're not actually in alphabetical order exactly. There's a long story behind that. One day I'll be able to fix it. And you've got an advanced search as well, which takes a very long time to open. Now there's about, well, oh no, here it is. Now, sometimes you will see strange fields to search in. They might be repeating the fields. That's because there's a little bug that sometimes comes up. If ever you don't see it as it is now, here it is correct, just click reset, and that will take you back to how you should view it. Here you can combine different search terms in order to narrow down your search. The global search at the top is just like the simple search we were talking about earlier. And then you can combine that, say, with I don't know, a collection, just one collection. I was saying earlier from the collection page, you couldn't search within a collection for that. But if you just want to look at the one part of a collection and find terms that deal with that, say man, so we've got two writers called man within the Paul Cloud collection. That's the way to do it, to narrow it down on the advanced search by collection. You can, if you ever know the reference numbers, you can use this field here. That is only really for document collections again. However, if you're wanting to search by reference number, you have to include everything in inverted commas. Otherwise, the reference number search won't work. So here I'm looking for 3000/7/1. That's a reference number, but I've had to put it in inverted commas in order to make it work. I could then put it in the order that it would appear in the catalog by going to catalog number ascending, and there you can see all those parts of that particular archive. So if I go into a record, a single record here, there you see the image on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side is some of the metadata from the catalog which you're using to find the material that you're interested in when you search. You can navigate either by looking at the pages this way or with the arrows, or you can bring up a thumbnail gallery and click to where you want to go. There's only not the entire metadata is here. If you want to see more information about the item, click on metadata, or there's also a link back to the Sutron online catalog, which has even more metadata. Some items, including this one, have been through an OCR program, optical character recognition. That means that that image has been converted into machine readable text. And by clicking on full text, you can see the machine readable text. Now, the machine readable text is not always entirely accurate. It's really there either for translation programs, so you could copy and paste that text and put it into an online translation program. You could use it for a screen reader for cases where you, for people with visual impairment. And perhaps the most useful goal of using OCR is that the text search will also pick up terms within the text itself. So if you do a search within the search here, you can see, yes, for example, here, the excerpt from an article in Der Stürmer, that finds the word pogroms not only in the metadata, but also in the text itself. And you can see that in the search results. The best, if you want to read an individual page, it's often easiest to go to full screen by clicking that button in the center. On the right-hand side, you have the full metadata and various other options. Downloads won't work because for copyright reasons, or mainly for copyright reasons, we don't allow people to download the images. You have to use them online. And as with the other view, you use the arrows to move between the pages, and you can bring up a full set of thumbnails there as well. One thing to highlight with regard to reference numbers, if ever you see reference numbers to our collections, as I mentioned, all archival collections are divided into various layers within an archival tree. Here's the reference number on an individual item. That first number, 2129, is the reference to the collection. Then we have a 1, which is the series, a 3, which is a sub-series, a 5, which is the file, and a 1, which is the item number. Because we only catalog to item level, sorry, not to item level, because we only catalog to file level, the item numbers never appear in any of the metadata. So if you look at the reference number here in the metadata on the right-hand side, it only contains the reference number up to the file level. So if you're reading some footnotes and you see the item number in those footnotes directing you where to find the item in our collections, ignore the item number when you're trying to search within the catalog or within the online digital repository. If I go to look at the item, that reference number 2129/1/3/5/1 refers to every image I see until I get to another reference number, if you're wanting to quote this page. So this 1 refers to this image, and then this image, and here we get to a new reference number, meaning that this page is now item number 2. And item number 2 continues over the next few images. If you're actually quoting in your footnotes, it possibly is easiest to use the URL, but it doesn't harm to use that reference number from the physical item as well. There we're on to /3. If anyone is cross-referencing between their footnotes, if they've used only the physical items in the past, with the digital items in the repository. I'll just sum up by giving an overview of the contents of Wiener Digital Collections, as opposed to the online catalog, which contains metadata for all the items in our reading room. For Wiener Digital Collections only has about 250,000 digital images, which is still quite a lot, and we're adding to those not every day, but maybe every week. There are limitations on what we can make available due to copyright and data protection concerns, but also donor agreements with regard to particular collections. The contents include our largest and most used collections, but they also intend to be representative, that is, show the full range of what we have in the library itself. So they range from family papers and institutional document collections to books, pamphlets, and periodicals. And we've also chosen what to make public on Wiener Digital Collections by looking at particular themes. So we picked up themes such as war crimes trials, pogroms, Spanish Civil War, anti-fascism, and then chosen items that fit those themes. And mentioning anti-fascism, these choices often also represent other projects that are happening in the library. So if we have a particular project with cataloging materials to do with relief work, and another one with fascism and anti-fascism, so that often feeds into the type of materials that we make available online. Now I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and then I'm going to give you a chance to do something. Namely, I've got some exercises. 6 different questions. And I'm going to give you 10 minutes to try, go to whlcollections.org. You see the URL up there, and see if you can try answering those questions by looking for those particular materials. I haven't created an exciting Mentimeter way of responding to it, so I'm just going to give you the answers after about 10 minutes. So I will let you go onto the website, try finding those answers to those questions. They all relate to things I talked about, so hopefully it shouldn't be too difficult. But sometimes it's easy to get lost and just concentrate on go down a rabbit hole. So if you find yourself doing that, just move on to the next one. Okay, so I'll give you 10 minutes.
You muted, Chris.
Yeah, I'm just going to try showing that again. Now can you see it? Yeah, I missed a key stage because I was talking. Okay, so yeah, 10 minutes then. Right. I think that's coming up to about 10 minutes. So I'll just go through some of the answers there. If there's any specific questions, either ask in the Q&A section or you could write into us. So the first question was on the number of records in the Wiener Library Archive dealing with fascism and fascists, and that was 92. So I was hoping that you would use the advanced search function and then type fash with a star into the global search field, and then choose Wiener Library Archive from the collection field, and that would have given you that answer. The publication date of our earliest book or pamphlet on pogroms was 1903. That wasn't actually the first one that would appear in the list if you organized the pamphlets and books by publication date. That's because the dates in square brackets are approximate dates, and special characters appear before numbers when you sort by anything. So the one that appeared at the top was actually after 1903. But yes, I was hoping you'd use the sort by function to sort by to get things in publication date order. If you found the letter from Alfred to Laura, his wife, he addresses her as my beloved, adorable baby wife. So I was hoping you'd use the table of contents widget, which is on the bottom right, because it's to jump ahead to September 1944. And I just realized I forgot to talk about that part in the presentation. So if you're really good, you would have found that. The other thing, the image, the photograph I was asking you to find was the MS Genera. The last number in the reference was the item number, so it wouldn't appear in the metadata. So you would have to click through the images in that file in order to find it. Then the next question was the date of the periodical. That was the 17th of August, 1942. The dates of the periodicals don't appear on the table of contents widget, but if you can, so you'd have to go through the issue and volume number to find it, but then you can see it on the page. And yes, the last answer was Lenzie, Scotland. Hopefully that wasn't too difficult, but it might have given you a bit of an idea, a bit of a feeling for using Wiener Digital Collections and searching around it. I'm going to hand you back over to Christine for a second.
Thank you. And I think we now are going to turn it over to Lise, who is going to talk us through a collection that we don't actually hold in physical format in our library, but we have the point of access to the International Tracing Service archive, which I mentioned at the beginning. But Elise is going to walk you through the online version of the ITS archive, which is now called the Erelson Archives, and give you some tips and tricks on how to start your search using the online archive. But of course, we always encourage everyone to try and access the full digital collection at a site if that's possible for you, or to contact our ITS team for queries as well. So Elise, handing over to you.
Thank you very much, Christine. Hello and welcome, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the day so far. I'm going to share my screen now. So let's see how this goes. Christine, can you just confirm what you can see? Is it okay?
Oh, good.
Great, thank you. So, Digital Skills Workshop, International Tracing Service Archive, and the Refugee Map. I'm just going to put a timer on my phone so that I don't waffle on forever, because I can about the ITS. Okay. Yes, so in today's session, my plan is I'm going to introduce you to the ITS archive and the Refugee Map, talk a bit about how we work with them in the library, and how you can best access and interpret the materials that they hold. So I'm going to start by talking about the International Tracing Service archive. So by war's end, millions of people were displaced across continental Europe, whether they were in the concentration camp system, whether they'd been shipped across Europe as forced labourers, or forced to leave their homes by circumstances of war. Whatever the reason, simply put, there were millions of people were somewhere other than where they wanted to be. There was a wide range of efforts to trace and register the missing people and to try and to reunite families. And we've got some photographs here. The top photograph shows survivors in registering in Hamburg in July 1945. The photograph below on the right shows lists of the missing being consulted in Paris in 1947. So you had these quite ground up efforts to try and find missing people. You had radio broadcasts and things like that of names of the missing. Various agencies were involved in the search for the missing: charities, government bodies, military bodies, survivor groups themselves. It's a very interesting and very complicated history. And if you want more detail, I would recommend Dan Stone's book, Fate Unknown: The Search for the Missing After World War II and the Holocaust, or Christine and Dan's online exhibition with the same name. But suffice to say, for today's purposes, I think if we just think that all of those various efforts to trace and register the missing eventually coalesced into a centralized search group called the International Tracing Service. And this tracing service, which you can see photographed on the left there, was based in a German town called Bad Arolsen. The ITS, so that's the International Tracing Services archive, is made up of a huge number of documents. It's over 30 million records connected with the experiences of 17.5 million people. And so the archive is basically the outcome of these efforts to trace and register the missing. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about what is in the collection first off, and then we're going to talk about how you can maybe access it. I know at the beginning when you were talking about your research areas of interest, I made a few notes about what people are studying. And I think, you know, someone said DP camps, someone said ego documents, refugee stories, Africa, patterns of migration, that kind of thing. I think that the ITS archive and the refugee maps can contain a great deal of useful information for your research. I hope so, at least. So, as I said, over 30 million documents in the ITS archive, which is a huge number to try and get your head around. It's 27 kilometers of shelving, of archival shelving. When you see it, it's insane in person. So to try and get to grips with a collection that big, I think about the material in two ways. The ITS archive is made up, part of them being perpetrator documentation. So these are records kept by the Nazis and their collaborators to facilitate their genocidal endeavors. So perpetrator documents can be material about individual victims. So if you're researching microhistories or trying to trace an individual person's path of persecution, or a family or a community, there's often a lot of helpful material about that in the ITS. This, for example, is a prisoner card from Buchenwald concentration camp, containing a lot of biographical information, contains a description of the woman in question, and it also gives us her path of persecution. So we can see she's also been in Auschwitz, she's been in Bergen-Belsen, she's now in Buchenwald, and we can see her prisoner number and category. So one document is giving us an awful lot of information about this person. As well as this sort of material that's about individuals, there's an awful lot of list material in the archive, transport lists. This page comes from the Mauthausen death record book, for example. So each line is a prisoner who has been killed. Here they've all been shot while trying to escape. And this, for example, is another list document that comes from Dachau concentration camp during the November 38 pogroms. So just one line of information will contain a prisoner's name, date of birth, are they married, do they have children, what's their profession, what's their last address, what's their prisoner number. So from one tiny scrap of information on a list material, sorry, you can start to really begin to piece together people's paths of persecution. As well as this information that's about prisoners, there's also a great deal of information in the ITS archive that is to do with, so I suppose it's more thematic work. It's sort of more to do with the bureaucracy of genocide. This document, for example, is a Nazi document that's giving instructions on how to organize and facilitate deportations. It lists what deportees are allowed to take with them, for example. This document is a template document from one of the T4 Action killing sites, killing people with disabilities, and it's a template letter of what the authorities, of how the authorities would tell their family that their loved one in the institution had died. So it's the letter says, oh, you know, we're sorry to say that your relative, I think it's her brother, you know, has died of the flu, when obviously actually they were murdered. So if you're interested in the euthanasia program, there's material about that as well. And there's also other material. This is to do with the deportation of, is it to do with the deportation of Jews from, yeah, it's a 1942 document containing the phrase Endlosung der Judenfrage. So I think sometimes people might think the ITS is only about individual people, and it's certainly the case that that is the best way to use the archive, but there's also a great deal, not the best way, it's the simplest way to search the archive, but there's also a great deal of information about subjects and thematic issues that you may be interested in. As well as perpetrator documentation, there's a lot of the other major category in the ITS archive are the post-war records. So this is material generated after the war. So it can be material from the displaced persons camps, for example. These two documents, the document you can see here is an individual's ID card from the DP camps. This document here is an application for assistance from the International Refugee Organization in 1947. And the family who has submitted this application have put in all their, this is sort of one of 5 pages in this application, and they've got all the family's biographical details, where they've been, where they want to go, the languages they can speak, the jobs they can do. So those documents can be very, very rich. There's also a section in post-war records about the child search branch, which is a specific part of the ITS's field work in the immediate post-war period, where they were trying to find lost children and also trying to reunite foundling children with either surviving relatives or to repatriate them to their home country. It's a bit of a fraught section of the archive, as you can imagine. Here we have another DP camp. This is actually Elie Wiesel's DP camp, author of Nacht. And can you make out here his basic biographical details, but also his parents' names. At this point, he wants to emigrate to Palestine. His last address. On the reverse of these cards, there's often information about a person's health. Are they well enough to work? Have they had their inoculations? So what can look like quite unassuming documents, once you know how to read them, which is the key, can contain a great deal of information. And there's also a lot of list material in the post-war section as well. There, for example, emigration lists of survivors and DPs moving to, this is people going to America, yes, New York. So that's a very, very brief overview of what the ITS archive contains. I'm always happy to talk about this in more detail. If you have any specific questions, let me know. How we use the ITS, how do we have a copy of the ITS in the first instance, I suppose? So as you can imagine, there's this huge, huge collection of, as I said, over 30 million documents in the Arlsen archives in Germany. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a significant digitization effort, and digital copies of the archive were housed in various institutions around the world, and the Wiener Holocaust Library has the UK's copy. So I'll come back to this, but if you're wanting to access the fullest digital copy of the archive, you need to come to a copy holding institution. That's us, it's Yad Vashem in Israel, it's United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in America, and there's a few other copy holders as well around the world. So we have a copy at the Wiener, and how we use it. We support academics, and that's ranging from students to professors, everyone in between. We work with heritage professionals as well, media, people, how does one say that? People who work with media, we help them as well. So we support a great deal of academic research. We use it to inform our own research. So our exhibitions frequently use material from the Wiener, our online resources, from the Wiener, forgive me, from the ITS archive. Our online resources often do as well. Staff members use it to write their own papers. And the core of what we do with it is family research. So that's where people will come to us and say, we never knew what happened to our grandmother, and we will search through the archive and try to find evidence of what happened to that person, pull the documents, write a narrative report, try and sort of give quite a full answer to the question of what happened to this person. We're a small team, there's 3 of us, but we are always happy to work with academics and to work with students and people who are trying to get to grips with this archive. The quote there on the right, the little boy sort of sat with his, oh, can you see my mouse if I do? No, you can't. Do you see my mouse if I do this? Yeah, so this fella here, this is Vic Cohnheim, here's him again, and he was a child survivor, came to the UK and had never looked into his history. And through the ITS, we were able to uncover something like 90 odd pages of documentation about him and identify his father's family. And it was such a rewarding case to work on and such a clear example of the potential power of the ITS archive. So how can you access this collection? First of all, there's the physical version held at the Arolsen Archives in Bad Arolsen, Germany, and you can go and visit that. And it's a remarkable place. It's quite tricky to get to, so maybe don't plan a holiday around it. But if you happen to be in the area, it's very much worth a visit, and they're very lovely and friendly. You can find one of the digital copy holding institutions. So that's us, as I mentioned, USHMM, Yad Vashem, and there are other places as well. Come to us, talk to us, we will always help you. There's a link there that you can submit research requests, or if you have any questions, you can submit research requests there. But what I want to talk about in a bit more detail is the online version of the archive. Let's hope this works. Here we are, excellent. So, I sort of just was so worried that wasn't going to work. I'm a bit thrown, but it has worked. Excellent. So what I would like to stress is the online version of the archive does not contain all of the material that we have access to. So what I would say is this is a fantastic place to begin your research into a topic or a person or a place, but it's not the place to end your research. Come to us as well. In addition to that, there's some material that is embargoed online that we can see and that you would be able to see if you came to us, but is not just available for anyone to look at online. But it's a fairly, on the plus side, it's a fairly intuitive search system. On the less plus side, it's not brilliantly indexed just yet. They're working on it, and I know they're relaunching it soon, but I worry that people run a search in here and they say, oh, nothing happened, so there's no information, there's no point using ITS. I would always say come to us too. The case I mentioned earlier where we found like 90 odd pages of documentation, out of interest, I ran the same search on this online version and got 3 pages of documentation. So sometimes it can be a very stark difference between what you can find here and what we can find for you on our copy. But it's great. And I think, it is a fantastic resource. So if we have a look at it in a bit more detail, the right-hand side here gives you some fantastic instructions on how to, use this, this resource yourselves. So have a good read through that if you're interested. But basically, it's a very simple kind of search system. So who am I searching for? I had some examples. Say you're interested in, I mentioned euthanasia earlier. Say you're interested in that topic, just type it in, press search. And what will happen is the search results come below. If there are any individuals with your search term, that will be listed there. There's none in this case, but the topic search comes down here. So the letter I showed you earlier is this letter here. So we can click on that. And on the right-hand side, you get the, oh, that's an exciting spelling of mentally. On the right-hand side, you get a copy of the actual document itself, which you can click on. You can zoom, you can do all this, you can click through, zoom, zoom, zoom. You can save the documents. Each document has its own unique ID code, so you can easily find them again. So that's one way to search sort of thematically. If you're interested in a place, ooh, interesting spelling there. You search for Buchenwald. This will bring up far more documentation as well, because it will also scoop up people in this search result. Maybe it was too broad a search. Let's give it a sec. Give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, perfect timing. I was just about to give up. Oh, brilliant. So, I mean, you can see how many people in the ITS archive have Buchenwald in connected with their records in some ways. And if we open that up and just click on one at random, this chap here, Henry Arholm, he appears in this list of prisoner changes in Buchenwald concentration camp. If we close that down, open up the topics, it's going to make a liar of me. Yep, it's made a liar of me, that's fine. But you get the point. You can search through the topics there as well. You can search for an individual. 54 records found here. And you can see it runs a phonetic search. So on the one hand, that's great because you don't need to worry too much. But on the other hand, if you're looking for a specific person, that's not much cop. So if you want to look only for Herman with one N, say, click on the filter tab, type in Herman, apply, and it's not done it. Nope, it's not doing it today. It was earlier, I do promise. Well, that's how you would filter results. Anyway, this is you know, when you were saying earlier about digital, the word cloud, like overwhelming and a bit maze-like. Yeah, sometimes digital things let us down, but never mind. Another thing I want to show you quickly is so you can run your search terms for individuals. Let's try a different one. 12 records found, it's a bit more manageable. And then we have our documentation here. You can say, you know, it's this 1907 chap you're looking for, just pop that in as well. So you can run multiple search terms at once. Much more manageable. Now this is the same chap who looks like he's been through quite a few different camps by his various prisoner numbers. And then again, you can click, this is his version of the record I showed you earlier. So you can click through and see what you can find. If you just want to browse, you can also do that. These are the various subunits of the archive. Click into incarceration documents, click into camps and ghettos. The material is organized by place. If we pop into Auschwitz, we've got various things here that various subunits that we can click through, and Buchenwald as well. So the browse archive is a useful function for just getting to grips with what is in the ITS archive in a bit more detail. Aware of time, so I may have to scooch on now. Go back to, how do I go back to my, there we are. Now, you may be thinking, oh, that's great, but I don't understand what those documents are. So don't worry about it, because Arolsen have pulled together a fantastic resource to help you decode the documents, and that is their e-guide. And these links, I'll circulate the presentation so you can explore this afterwards. This is just fantastic because they've taken examples of the cards and they've explained what they are. They've given you an awful lot of background information. So say if we search for let's just search for Amsterdam type of card in particular. You can search for any type of card. So if you saw this card, you'd think, what on earth is that? If you haven't seen it before, how on earth do you begin to understand that? Through the e-guide. So you've got the background information here. You've got Q&As down here, which are really, really great for background resources. But what's really exciting is that there's these markers all over the page. And if you click on something in particular, it will explain what that particular part of the card shows. So what does K mean? Well, they don't actually know what it means, but that's fine. It's like up here, what's this? Date of arrival. What does that mean? Oh, it means that they survived. So there's all this rich information that the e-guide pulls out for you. So the e-guide is a fantastic resource, and I highly recommend exploring it fully. Okay, a couple of minutes left. So that was a brief introduction to the ITS archive, what's in it, how you can access it, and how you can understand what you're looking at. I also want to talk about the refugee map, which is a resource that the Wiener Holocaust Library has created. It's an online resource that's populated, as you can see, with information from our own collections. The reason why we thought to talk about the refugee map and the ITS together is because they're both great for researching individual narratives and individual paths of persecution and paths of migration as well. I'm coming up to time, so I'm going to just give a quick introduction, just to have a quick peek on it so you can have a look, see what it looks like. So this is the landing page of the refugee map. You can type in a search question here, or you can click on explore the map. And you can either kind of click and point or go, what's this here? The material that's held it's an array of types of resources letters, emigration documents, interviews, photos, newspaper clippings, all that kind of thing. You can search by, hang on, we'll go to the search section. As you can see, you can just type in a broad query and then you can narrow the field if you're only interested in certain things. If you're only interested in video, if you only want to see witness testimony, for example, we'll click that off. If we have a look, for example, at Belfast, maybe you're looking at post-war paths, and we have records, background information, and we also have, I won't press play, but there's a video there that you can watch all about Gert Jakobowicz's time in Belfast. So it's a great resource as well for kind of understanding the global nature of the Holocaust and its aftermath. So I want to just very quickly, I'm on my last minute, but one thing that I wanted to show you was how well these work together. Do you remember our fellow Moritz earlier? Moritz, where's it gone? Steinhauser, who I looked up. We looked up Moritz Steinhauser here. Oh, nothing matches my search. Fabulous. Did earlier, promise. I did check all these. Tell you what, I know he was in Buchenwald. Let's try that instead. No. There he is. So this is the Moritz Steinhauser, 13th October 1907, who we were looking at here. So between these two resources, because there's no photograph of them in the ITS archive, but it's a fantastic way between moving to them between the two resources to try and get a more overarching view of what happened to this individual and his path of persecution and migration. And I think that speaks to the power of digital collections to try and mitigate the scattered nature of Holocaust archives. They're all over the place, but if we can use digital collections to try and bridge those gaps, that is a real strength of this approach and this sort of type of work. So I've rattled through that. I've gone over a little bit, forgive me. I do have, like Chris, I have a few questions, which I'll leave up on the screen. It's just some little tasks. Most of the things that I'm asking you to do are things that I just quickly did on my search function. So we've just got 3 questions about the online version of the ITS archive, a little question about the e-guide as well. E-guide's amazing. So we'll give you 10 minutes or so to have a look at that, and then we will regroup for Q&A. So it's past now, so we'll launch everything again at 15:40. Have a play around with that. Righty-ho. I feel like I need a countdown or something track, but that's the end of time. I think that's, hopefully you've all had a good play around. So yes, hopefully you've had a good chance to have a look at those questions and work through. We're now going to reveal the answers. Christine, do you have the Mentimeter ready to go? All right, question 1. Which subunit would you search on the online version of the ITS archive if you knew a person's Auschwitz number?
And just
Any votes?
this,
Coming in strong.
this is the same Menti link as before. So you just join at menti.com and you use the same code at the top of the screen in case if you've logged off to log back in. I'll put the link again in the chat.
Well, any more answers coming in? Well, delighted to say 100% success rate so far. That is the subunit that you would look in if you had a person's Auschwitz number and wanted to see if there's any more information about them. Congratulations. Question 2, how many records are there for women named Rosa Berlin in the online version of the ITS archive? Pick an answer. And if you're thinking, what the heck? Pop it in the Q&A if you're thinking, I don't understand what's happening here. Oh, interesting, interesting. Any more for any more? Right, what's happened here, you've fallen into my very cunning trap, was that the surname is Berlin, but if you just search Rosa Berlin, it will also pull up documentation or records that include Berlin as the city or the place name or the last place that they lived or where they were born or where they were persecuted. If you include Berlin as a general search term and not just as a surname, there are indeed 6,921 records. So you're not wildly wrong, you just need to tweak your searching a bit. No one fell for my other trap, which was the people who put 14, which is correct, you search specifically using the filter function for Rosa, not Rose or Rosie, which would have brought 17 results. So congratulations, the correct answer is 14. Excellent searching, but if you went for the 6,921, it's very understandable. Just got to tweak your search terms a bit. Righty-ho, next question. Who or what is the source of the collection documents about medical experiments in KL Auschwitz and Ravensbrück, found in subunit 4.2? Give it a few more seconds. Were you able to find out? That's a good guess. But no, it was from Fraulein Simonius from IKRF in Genf or Geneva. The information was on the right-hand side of the screen as you looked at it. So well done. So that was just to show that the information about, there is some metadata available online, but you can always ask us if you're a bit unsure. The final question, please, Christine, thank you very much. If you search the e-guide for a labour assignment card from Buchenwald concentration camp, what does the number in the top right corner mean? Oh, it's very tense there for a moment. It's very close, neck and neck. Any more for any more? Oh. Do you know, I was all cynical about Mentimeter. This is quite fun. I feel like we could run some bets on this. It's great. Righty-ho, I will give you the correct answer is that it is the block number that the person was living in. The work commando number and the prisoner number are also on that card, but it's in the top right-hand corner. If on the e-guide, if you clicked on that number, it explains on the right-hand side that that's what that is showing. So that was the end of the questions. I've just got one last Mentimeter to look at, please, Christine, which is just, what topic do you think you'd be good to research using the online Arlson archive? And if what you're thinking is none, that sounds awful, feel free to put that too, and we can have more of a chat and we can, family history, yes, excellent. That is what we use it for a great deal. Oh, it's a strong one. Yeah, strong answer. Yeah, it is really good. It is, I suppose you've got to remember that it was always set up in the initial instance as a tracing service. So it is easiest to search for individuals and it is excellent for that. But you can also, if you kind of know how to search, you can really find those thematic documentation and that information as well. Camp transfers, yes, it can be excellent for tracking a person's path of persecution. Yeah, post-war welfare and aid, there is a lot about that, and DP camps in particular. Some of the documentation you can get about the DPs is remarkably detailed. Those applications for assistance to the International Refugee Organization that I mentioned, they can contain, you know, more information than I know about my own grandmother. It's bonkers how much detail you can sometimes find in the ITS archive. All right, smashing. Well, I hope if you hadn't used ITS and the refugee maps before, you're now a bit more intrigued because it is fantastic. But what time are we on now? 1:45. So we've got time now for any Q&A. That can be to Christine, to Chris, or me.
Yeah, you can pop those in the Q&A. Also, before we close, before you run away, it'd be great if you could do one more survey. We're going to put that in the, bring that up in Zoom, actually. We're going to try that and see how that works. Here comes one question. What kind of graduate student doctoral fellowships are offered at the library? At the moment, we're actually currently running a ERI UK fellowship intake. I'll put a link to that in the chat shortly. These are meant for PhD students, early career researchers, heritage practitioners to come to a select number of host institutions, including the library, but other institutions as well. And this is run through ERI, and these are for people based in the UK. But ERI does also host international fellowships. So if you're logging in to this workshop outside of the UK, you can apply to those. So I will put the link to both of those. We are a host for ERI fellowships as well. I'll put a link to both of those in the chat.
Just to say, if you've got any questions or you think the ITS is for you, or you know anything that we can go into in more detail, do feel free to contact me directly afterwards. If you want to know more about it or have a one-to-one Zoom, that's fine, we can organise that.
Okay, I think while we wait for any other questions, oh, there's another one. What percentage of records would you say are only available in person as opposed to what is available online? Chris, that sounds like a great question for you.
The overwhelming majority of our records are available in the Wiener Digital Collections. We're limited in what we can put online by the practicalities of digitization, of then hosting it on various servers, but also the fact that there's material for copyright, data protection reasons, or because of the donor agreements for those collections that we can't make publicly available online. So you're going to find a lot more material if you just go into Sutron. That said, I think, well, yeah, our biggest collections are online, and our most used collections are online. The one exception is the Board of Deputies Defence Committee papers, which deals with anti-fascism and fascism in the interwar period. That is a massive collection which has about 74,000 images that has been digitized, but it's only available in the reading room because of donor agreements. So you'd have to come here to see that. But apart from that, the really big collections are the ones that we have made available.
There's a second question, more about ITS, but I think mentioned previously that more records can be found in the ITS at the Wiener than on the public online archive. Is this the case for the majority of, I assume, maybe records you've looked at?
Yeah, I don't.
Possibly.
Sorry, I don't really understand the question, to be honest. Sorry if I'm being daft there. Sorry, anonymous attendee, or Chris and Christine, if you can understand it a bit more. Is this the case for the majority of records you've looked at?
ITS records.
Like,
do you find the online version more helpful in doing your search?
Okay. Yeah, it's getting better all the time, the online version, I would say. So it's always worth looking at that. A lot of the material that we find in our copy that can't be seen online is, for example, search requests made about person after the war. So there's often correspondence files about the sought person. So that sort of material is sometimes available online, but sometimes not. It seems to be there's an embargo period, basically. So any documentation that's produced or created in the last 30 years. So if in the last 30 years, someone has written to ITS saying, please can I have some information about my auntie, here's my contact details, here's what I know about her. You can't see that online. It's that kind of material that you can't see online. And also material that's particularly sensitive or graphic, or as Chris said, it's the same sort of setup. If someone has requested that their information not be available online, then it's not. Some of the donors donated on the condition that it would never be published online. So there's an awful lot of material available in the online archive. Like, please don't be disheartened by that. But it's always worth coming to us as well to check if we have any more. And you can come in if you want to do the research yourself in person. If it's a really big project, ongoing for a long time, we will train you up in how to use the archive. We're very happy to offer inductions. If it's quick questions, it's often a lot easier and a lot simpler for the ITS team to do the research for you and just send you the documents that are relevant. And that's not as gatekeeping, it's just that it takes hours and hours and hours to train someone up in how to use the archive. And sometimes it's just not time effective to train someone up if they're only looking for a couple of documents.
All right, I think I'm going to launch this last poll. Hopefully you can see that. Just 4 quick questions about your experience today in this workshop, and if you have any ideas for other kinds of workshops you'd like to see covered. This is our first go at this, but we will continue to answer questions. But I'm going to leave. Hopefully you can see this poll. Oh, somebody's answered, so yes, you can. So while we continue to answer questions, we will leave this poll up. Yeah, Elise, can you take that next question about how much time it takes to?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's a stupid answer, but it sort of depends how many people you're looking for. It depends sort of the extent of your research question. If you're going to the Arleston archives in person, I would recommend strongly contacting them beforehand, and they will advise you on exactly that kind of question, on sort of practicalities of carrying out the research on site there as well. So it would yeah, I'd say talk to the archivists at Arleston Archives about that, and they'll be able to advise.
Great. Well, we're going to just hang out here for a few more minutes. There's a couple thanks coming in, and if we'll leave this room open for about 5 minutes. So if you have any other questions that spring to mind, please feel free to post them. We'd really love your feedback on today's session, and we are hoping to offer more of these in the future that are maybe a bit more tailored to particular requests or ideas that people have. And just wanted to thank you for participating and hope it was a good introduction to our many, many digital resources and growing digital collections. So thank you very much. And thanks to Chris and Elise for your presentations as well. So we'll just hang out a bit in case anybody has any other comments. Thanks very much for the positive feedback. Right, everybody, thank you very much. And thanks to those who took part in the feedback. And hopefully we will see you at our next workshop. Thanks again.